assessment. We actually run this holistic assessment in 2 companies. We are still running that, but let's see what we found here. So the idea here is that we have a holistic assessment technical debt management. So we have different aspects, 8. So we know that technical debt is accumulated also because of non-technical issues. We just saw that in the process debt presentation. So we want to understand, rather than measuring the technical debt in the system, we want to understand how the company is managing technical debt, and if there are different perspectives and there is misalignment across the roles, and if the process is in place. So what we did here, this is a bit long, but we use a lot of the results that we have, found in 10 years of research on technical debt. We prepared a survey. We got input from the organization that wanted to run the survey to fit their context. We ran the survey separately, both for managers and for technical roles, because we wanted to see if there were some misalignment there. We did the analysis, we did the discussion, and we prepared like a plenary result where we invited all the participants in the survey. We did this plenary report. We had a presentation of the results, and then we tried to assess how useful was this information for the participants. And and we planned the next step. We tried to identify the gaps and try to understand what we should focus on next, the improvement areas. What we're going to do next, we are doing deep dive workshops on specific topics, on select improvement areas, and then we are disseminating in Software Center and so on. And what we plan to do, what could be also interesting, is to benchmark different companies to see how different they manage technical debt. We are process technical debt. This is I'm getting confused too. So this is something we are starting to do right now. The study participants, we have 112 participants for 2 organizations, 32 managers, 85 technical roles. Let's go quickly to the assessment. Okay, we had we found practices that were good, or we saw that they were better than what we found in previous results. We saw practices that were probably needed a lot of improvement, and we also found things that were interesting but neither bad or good per se. And then we found candidates for deep dive workshops where we could better investigate the topics, especially the gaps. So this is how it this is how it actually looks like. This is not real data, because we prefer not to share the actual results, but you can see how this works. For example, you can see that we have a maturity model for the technical roles, and how, depending on how they answered all the questions that we had, which I don't have here because I don't have time to share all the questions. That would take like quite a few hours. But let's say that the questionnaire was only 15 minutes for each participant. But here you can see that, for example, the maturity, for example, for the process in this case was not that high, but the tools, the knowledge was good, but the awareness was not, and so on. If you look, we also had like the same maturity model for the management. We can see what was good or not, depending on how the questions were answered. And also we had this one about the misalignment. So we try to understand if there was a misalignment about any of these aspects between the management and the technical roles. For example, it might be like a high difference in how the different roles perceive the lack of knowledge or the education about technical debt, or the organizational aspects, or maybe they are very aligned. And also we have only misalignment and not maturity for the prioritization and encouragement, because these are maybe highly subjective aspects, and we prefer to just not have a maturity model on that, because they could depend a lot also on the company's context. But you can see that misalignment. So if the managers think They have a way to prioritize, and it's very different from the technical roles. You can see here like a big bar. And actually, yes, this can actually happen. The same for the encouragement and the same for all the other ones. Knowledge, awareness, education, organization, process, and tools. After this, we actually asked the participants to rate the improvement suggestions. So we try to understand for each of these topics which ones the participants wanted to improve. And you can see here it went from no improvement to huge improvement needed. And you can see that basically we had like technical leadership, technical data visualization, culture, mindset, semi-automatic techniques, knowledge on technical data management, better guidelines, and technical data risk assessment and communication. And in this example here, which doesn't represent like a real one, but it's it's similar. You can see that all the aspects here, for example, they need some improvement, but you can have some winners, meaning that there are aspects that they really needed to be better prioritized and to need better practices. For example, here you can see that between the managers and the technical answers, we see that the technical roles really wanted to have a huge improvement, between substantial and a huge improvement with respect to the cultural mindset when it comes to technical debt. We can also see that, for example, about knowledge, the respondents were very well aligned. Basically, all of them agree to have a substantial improvement, while the managers could actually prefer to have better risk assessment related to technical debt. So based on this and on the results that we had, we said, okay, let's try to understand what are the next steps. And basically, we put all these topics in a maturity ladder. And you can see that the rationale for this is that first, we need to have a good awareness. Without awareness, we can't really do anything about other practices related to technical debt. If we don't know what technical debt is and that it's important, it's difficult to do anything else. Then we have knowledge, culture, and mindset. That is something that we need to understand how to manage technical debt, and also how to encourage technical debt, for example. And then we have organization and processes. Once, of course, we have the awareness and what we know how to fix things, we can put in place a good organization, a good process, and also tools, because, of course, but for tools to actually work, we need to have also the other steps in place. So last slides, we actually asked the feedback from participants. We used Mentimeter. We had 10 management roles and 20 technical roles participating in the follow-up workshop that participated in this assessment. So after we did the survey, after we presented the results, after we discussed the improvements, we actually asked, okay, was this actually useful for you? And we did this in one of the companies. We plan to do that also on the other one, and we will see what happens there. So what did they say? First of all, we can see that they agree with the outcome of the overall assessment. You can see that it was around 4 out of 5, and you can see a good. So basically, they agree with the assessment, the aggregated assessment from different roles, which I think it's interesting. And also, let's say they also agree that the identified action points for the deep dive workshop were the good ones. So we actually identified the right gaps to follow up and to do work on to improve the technical debt management. We also asked if the reported findings were useful. This is also quite good. It's around 3.8 out of 5. So they were useful for most people. Interesting enough was that, on the other hand, these were not actually that unexpected for most of the participants. But I think this is I think it's a good it's good to see that this was actually working. Then we identified also what topics were the most useful. We see that encouragement was one of the most useful, the tools and prioritization and processes. But in general, you can see that all of them had someone who actually appreciated them. We also ask about the unexpected, but as we see here, the unexpected were not that many. Right. We have time maybe for one question before I close with the security one. Is there any question here that anyone is interested in to ask about this? We are looking for other companies if they want to participate in this survey. So, any questions?